So, update on Ariana's sidewalk. One little Dutch iris decided to bloom. I think the ground alder is squeezing it out. Here's the arch where the morning glories will be growing. Right now, they're just tiny little babies and they're a little pale, so I'm going to offer them some fertilizer. There's sweet peas in there too. And the teepees have been taken down. And the dahlia pots are all lined up now. And here in the front, I planted the gladiolas. And these smaller pots have canna lilies. This is the first year I've had them, so I don't expect they'll get very big. And something has been chewing on some of my plants. I've noticed quite a few snails and slugs, like an incredible amount. So I suspect that that's them. Some petunias. I know you can't tell by the video, but they're scented. I like scented petunias. Life's too short to grow the ones that don't smell. And here is Ariana's favorite rose bush. Well, the only rose bush I ever brought roses in from. Yep, Ariana Rose and her little rose. And the honeysuckle is just about to blossom. Yes, that's neem oil spray. Because the rose bush has some black spot on it. And I'm hoping that the neem oil can help. But in the meantime, the roses are still beautiful, with or without spots on the leaves. These heirloom varieties tend to be pretty rugged. And these Star of Persia, there's 3 of them here in a row, have opened. These spiky things here are Sweet William. They're a dianthus variety. They're related to carnations. My nephew's friggin' flamingos. He thinks he's a comedian. The May Night Blue Salvia. That little Wigalia. And the penstemon is budding up, it looks like. These alliums are going to seed, which is fine. They're decorative while they're going to seed. And then I can take the seeds and make myself more alliums without having to pay for them. And this is a clematis. It's a sibling of the one that's kind of buried over there in the honeysuckle vine. And they have fringy blue flowers on them. The Leotris is getting ready to blossom, as is the Monarda. And the lemon thyme is spreading out quite happily. I'll have to pull some of that back and cut some to dry. I like it better than plain thyme. The lemon really gives it a sparkle. The rose that was here has died, so this new one is one that Andrea brought home, Ariana's mother. She's gotten into gardening now that she's not taking care of Ari. And my columbine is going to seed. Now I have this large, very large, blue columbine, and I have a smaller one in another bed. But I'm going to save the seeds and swap them for columbines in colors I don't have. The azalea is just about done blooming. Quite striking though with the 2 of them side by side. That kind of dark purpley blue with that bright fuchsia pink azalea. And that little rhododendron over here, just chugging along. I need to find a place for it where it'll have enough space. And over here across the sidewalk, the lupine, I think it's labeled blue. I call it purple because it is purple, is blooming quite cheerfully. This little guy got buried under this ground alder, and I think I'm going to cut it back and let it sprout up again. The baptisia, also almost buried. It blossomed, but the stem's not long enough to really see it. It'll do more when it gets bigger. There's the foliage. It looks like a pea vine. And that yellow stuff is woad, getting ready to bloom. I've got to pull that out too. It's quite enthusiastic. And the autumn damask rose has buds just about ready to go. It hasn't bloomed for me yet. The lilies are chugging along. These are the Turk's cap lilies. And assorted daylilies. That's, I think, an oriental or orient pet. I'm not sure what that one is. And you can see I've been getting some work done. At this time of year, it's hectic because everything wants to be started, everything wants to be protected from frost. This is a little surprise from my sister. It's a wisteria, and that string is to guide it when it decides to start getting twiny up this maroon Norway maple, called the Jonathan maple, after one of our nephews. A baker's rack, which is now serving to hold my little seedling flats. Here's this, the Pyrrhus is still putting out lots of that bright red foliage. So pretty. Bird bath. You can see by the PV screen there in the middle that it lights up at night. It's a solar lamp. And that little butterfly bush in the back. They always look, in the springtime, in zone 5, they always look like they've died in the winter. And by the time you finally have enough time to go out and dig them out, they've got leaves on them. Here's a white gallia. Another white gallia. I'm fond of those. And the viburnum, which has been blossoming. And another white gallia. Believe it or not, this little guy is about 2 feet tall right now. Will get to be quite tall later on. And on the other side of the very old apple tree, Campsis radicans. Trying to think of the folk name for a cardinal vine, I think. It's a perennial, and once it takes off, and again, it's got a string to guide it to the trunk of this God knows how many year old apple tree. These were mature apple trees when we moved in here about 55 years ago. So the wire is there so that when the beans come up, and then my brother screwed these onto the side of the shed roof. I'll run some string and make them a trellis to climb. But in the meantime, you have to keep the birds from coming and eating bean sprouts. Same thing here at the end. I'm waiting for a summer squash. What can I say? They have good taste and healthy food. On the other side, another salvia May night, because my sister doesn't remember that we have several. And this guy whose name I just cannot think of. We'll see when it blooms. And a stray allium that got accidentally pulled out while I was weeding another bed. And a couple of very tiny columbine transplants out of this bag. This fabric pot is, I think, a 2-gallon. They've been in there a couple of years. They take a while to get started. So, an onion that sprouted in the fridge. A sweet potato. A real one, not a decorative one. Some herbs. I realized that this bed would be quite popular with the woodchuck, who has a hole over here at this end of the shed and a hole in the shed that comes up through the floor. So you have to be very careful what you plant. And they don't like these. These are sage, marjoram, rosemary, and Munstead lavender. That's the best kind to use for herbal medications. And over here, this is the original bed that I planted when I first started gardening here at my sister's. Here's my other blue columbine, just a baby, and this one was actually pink. And some sumac coming to visit from the neighbor's backyard. And this poor little guy here in the background that needs to get rescued and moved because with the sumacs, they make it too shady. Some monarda here in a slightly neglected bed. And this is lemon balm, Melissa officinalis. Very nice in tea. This rose bush came out of one of those little pots that you get at the grocery store produce department around Valentine's Day. Here is a red peony getting budded up. This little princess spirea that already blossomed, you can see. And these are my peonies. And they're in different colors. I don't have any of the really fancy ones like the red or the, well, I sort of do have red. I meant to say yellow. Yellow is an unusual color. This girl is called Eden's Perfume. There's another one. And kind of pinched in the back here, doesn't have a blossom on her right now, is Moonstone. And here are some more. And I found all sorts of recipes to make things like peony syrup. So that's what I think I'll do. Here's a Sweet William blossoming. Once you plant them, they pretty much are there to stay, so be careful where you plant them, although they're not hard to dig out if they become intrusive. Irises that need to get moved because it's too shady over here now. White Sweet William. And an allium that has kind of mixed it up with this daisy. It's not a real daisy, it's a Montauk daisy. But it looks a lot like a daisy, and my sister likes daisies, so I planted that for her. I'm thinking of moving this guy out here into the sun in that new bed I made where we took the tree down. But we'll see. And over here in this neglected little area, I had an echinacea, just the purple one. I think Magnus is the specific variety. And went to seed, so I threw the seeds around. And it looks like I've got a pretty good bunch of them. I've got to get in here, weed out the grass. And I'd like to eventually just have this whole, it's the side of my sister's yard shed. So I'd like to eventually get that filled in. And here is Bobby Bobtail, the yard supervisor. Take care, get outside, get some fresh air, plant a tree. We need as many as we can get. And there's the lupines over there.